and welcome to worship from St. Andrew's United Church. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be welcomed into your homes or wherever you find yourself today or at another time when you might view this service this week. Today marks our last live service from St. Andrew's until the 30th of August. Over the next 5 weeks, we have a lineup of guest preachers as well as a couple of special services that have been recorded over the past 10 days to share with you. We'll welcome the Reverend David Iverson, Reverend Randy McKenzie, and the Reverend Dr. Jeff Crittenden, who is the Senior Minister at Metropolitan United Church in London, Ontario. Also, next Sunday, July the 26th, we'll have a special Soup for the Soul Sunday, as well as on August 23rd, we will have a special Margot's Place Sunday to share with you as well. If there are any pastoral care needs that need attention for those in our community over the time between now and August the 24th, we invite you to contact Katie. Her phone number and email is listed on the service material that you can download for today's service, as well as in the comments section of our Facebook Live recording this morning. A couple of sad notes to share with you this morning. It's been a very difficult week for those in our community and in places near and far. I'd like to send our best wishes, our love, our support, our prayers to Barry Kosminski, as his sister, Barb Walters, died very unexpectedly this past week, as well as my good friend, someone you may know or you may not know, but from Brantford, a very good friend of mine, Keith Johnson, died very suddenly this past Tuesday. And then after a long period of illness, we offer our blessings and our prayers for the family of David Loney, as well as Charlie Johnson, father of Kate McGregor Johnson. Many of you will know Charlie from here at St. Andrew's as well. So our thoughts and our prayers during this difficult week are shared with those whom we know that we care about, and we walk with you during this time of loss. United Church of Canada and St. Andrew's United Church recognizes that these are the traditional territories and land of the Indigenous peoples of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people. We recognize and honor not only the heritage that they share upon these lands, but also give thanks for the opportunity that allows us to continue in sharing God's ministry in this place today. We offer ourselves to God. We worship the God who inhabits our world and indwells in our very lives. We need not look up to find God. We need only to look around, within ourselves, beyond ourselves, in the eyes of another. We need not listen for the distant thunder to find God. We need only listen to the music of life, the words of children, the questions of the curious, and the rhythm of the heartbeat. We worship the God who inhabits our world and who indwells in our lives. Let us pray.
Praise
rested his head on a stone pillow and saw visions of your angels. Be with us this day. Give us a vision of your presence in the midst of our strife, and give us courage and confidence that you are with us, calling us to be your loving people within this world. But you are a patient God, and it is so easy for us to focus on all the things that are wrong. We spend much time and energy in anger and in sorrow, leaving behind the possibilities of hope and service to you. And so ease our hearts this day, O God. Forgive our willingness to get caught up in the negative, and direct our steps toward positive actions that will produce growth and peace. We offer this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. May the peace of Jesus Christ be with you all.
And also with you.
Let us share this greeting of peace with one another wherever we may find ourselves this day. This morning we jump back to the very first book in our faith tradition, the book of Genesis, chapter 28, verses 10 through 19. This is a little bit of a snippet of the story of the scoundrel Jacob, who falls asleep one night and has this amazing dream. And it's very interesting for us to hear of this story and to look at Jacob's life and wonder why in the world would God spend any time or make any type of promises to someone who is such a scoundrel. But in doing so, we listen to these words and we try to find meaning and connection with the very experience of life that we share today. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for a night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring, and your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate to heaven. So Jacob arose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the place Beth. Herein is wisdom. Thanks be to God. It was the morning before Canada Day in 2016, and James Regan needed somewhere to live. Regan, a distinguished, even handsome man of 62, had just beautiful silver hair and a finely groomed and trimmed mustache. And he presented himself at the Chestnut Park Real Estate Office, which is a luxury brokerage in the heart of Summerhill, one of Toronto's most desirable neighborhoods. So smartly dressed, he approached the receptionist and inquired about renting an apartment. He met with an agent, and he presented himself as a devout Christian, a family man devoted to his son and to his son's mother. He claimed to run a thriving consulting business, and he hobnobbed with the city's most exclusive social clubs, hotels, events, people, NHL players. Well, it was in that boardroom that the agent, Robin Ennis, one of Chestnut Park's realtors, learned something about James. He was in a hurry. He needed an apartment quickly, he said. And as it happened, Ennis was looking to rent out the top floor of her own home, a spectacular detached Victorian home on Avenue Road, just a few blocks away from Chestnut Park. Ennis herself lived on the main floor, so she showed Regan the upstairs apartment, and he agreed to sign for a lease for $3,000 a month, so long as they could finalize the details right away. But before Ennis could draw up the agreement, she told Regan she needed a bank draft for the first and last month's rent, a credit report, and a criminal background check. Well, Regan showed up at the Avenue Road home the next morning, Canada Day. But he showed up without the certified check or the things that she had asked for securities. Well, Ennis obviously was a little bit hesitant when Regan showed up without these. But he seemed so respectable, which is why when she was called away to another real estate offer, she just handed the keys to Regan and said, just make sure that you bring them by tomorrow. And so on this day, this Canada Day, Robin Ennis became the latest Canadian to lose her independence of James Regan. For when Ennis pressed Regan about the background checks and the red money, he assured her that all would be sorted away the next day, or the next day, or the next day. But by then, Regan had changed tact, telling Ennis that they'd be dealing with the Landlord-Tenant Board, the tribunal established under the Residential Tenancies Act to mediate this rental dispute. Well, Ennis was completely stunned. And then Regan added, "You have no idea who it is that you're dealing with." Scoundrels have been a part of the existence of humanity from the very beginning of time. Regan being just one of them. I know people from my past, even currently, who I would identify as scoundrels. People who are willing to do absolutely anything to take something from someone just for their own personal needs, regardless of how it affects another person. I've known people to practice minor and unfortunately major insurance fraud. I've known people to steal and to lie, and even in doing so, maintain that they've done nothing wrong. Somehow they convince themselves that what they do is okay, even though it has such a profound negative effect upon not only relationships, but on people's ability to just carry on themselves in a trusting way. Well, the Bible's version of how all this plays out is in the story of Jacob. Jacob, you see, in this week's reading, is a fugitive. He's on the run. He's on the run and he's in fear, and nobody feels a whole lot of sympathy for Jacob. He's unjustly done things and nasty in how he has interacted with family members and with people within his social circle. He's also what you would call somewhat of a mama's boy, because every time he gets into trouble, it's like his mother bails him out, especially when his twin brother Esau saved him from being strung up by Esau for stealing the elder son's birthright. We're told that Jacob is a dyed-in-the-wool crook, and his seamy adventures throughout the 25th and the 36th chapter of the book of Genesis, they tell like a long-running soap opera. But Jacob survives again and again and again by being cunning, but also because he never seems to get what he deserves. You know, it's that old adage, why do bad things continually happen to good people, where we know people that we would categorize as scoundrels or not being very nice people or even bad people just seem to just effortlessly float through life without any consequences or circumstances. Jacob always seems to get more and more, even though he does things that are very, very troubling. As I mentioned, he cheats his lame-brained brother out of his birthright, and he gets away with it. Then years later, he cheats his brother again, this time out of the blessing that was rightfully coming to Esau. And he gets away with that too. He not only gets away with it, but once his crime is known, both Rebekah and Isaac cover for him. When Rebekah discovers that Esau is already just had it with his brother Jacob and is ready to do him in. Rebekah says, no, let's just send him off and get him to marry a foreign girl. Let's just pass him off to someone else. Just, shift him to another life where he can act in those ways towards others and we just don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, that's where this week's story begins. Jacob is on the run between a place where he is no longer welcome and a place that he has never been. He's guilty, defenseless, and scared. And he hasn't got a friend in the world. He's completely isolated. And he finds himself out in the hill country of Beersheba. Worn out and strung out, he lies down under the night sky with nothing else but a stone as a pillow. Well, as he lies down and falls asleep, Jacob has this dream. Now, people like you and I know that dreams come out of all different types of circumstances in life. We might toss and turn at night because, well, our minds and our deep psyche are coming to grips with some of the troubling experiences that we are facing in our everyday lives. Or maybe we dream of something that happened years ago and it's kind of set up a little bit differently, but we wake in the morning and we wonder, what the heck is going on with these dreams that seem to recur and come back again and again and again? You would expect Jacob to fall asleep and feel guilty, or maybe have complete nightmares with visions of how he has deceived those closest to him and betrayed not only their confidence, but also their welcome and their love. Maybe he would dream about finally getting caught and getting what he truly deserves. But that doesn't happen. For the story says Jacob dreamed a dream that nearly brings tears to the eyes with its unexpected beauty and its wonder. Jacob dreams a dream of a stone stairway that is set up on earth and reaches all the way up to the heavens. And on that staircase are angels both going up to heaven and coming back down. And then there, right beside him, is none other than God himself, speaking to Jacob, not with words of reproach and judgment and saying, "Oh, Jacob, you have not been a good boy. You better get your act together." No, for some reason, God speaks words of comfort and of blessing to the scoundrel. "The land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring," God says to Jacob in the dream. "And your offspring shall be like that of the dust of the earth, and all the families of the earth will be blessed. You and your offspring know that I am with you," God says, "and I will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Really? Why in the world would God offer this blessing to someone of Jacob's ilk? You got a question. As always, it is what God says in a dream. What God says to a dream to the people who dream it, that is important for us to reflect and listen upon. God is going to give Jacob the biggest crook almost within our biblical tradition. The biggest crook more land, a huge family, more power, more honor than Jacob could have ever stolen for himself. It was more than Jacob could ever have dreamed of trying to get, more than his own father could have given him, more than God had ever promised anyone. And God assures Jacob by saying that God will stick by Jacob until every last part of that promise is kept. Well, it was, to say the least, quite a promise, quite a blessing, and quite a dream. One would have expected God to have a little more of something like a just mind towards that little cheat, a taste of divine wrath and brimstone and fire and lightning and thunder and hail and locusts or whatever towards Jacob, because God, we're told, has shared some of those things in the past. A good old chewing out. That's what Jacob needs to be put straight. But it doesn't happen. And we're told upon awakening, Jacob builds a monument in that place and calls it Bethel. Bethel, which means the house of God. And then made a vow to God just to show him that he hadn't lost his touch. Jacob wakes from this dream and he says, God, if you will be with me and you will keep me in this way wherever I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give to me, I will surely give 1/10 to you. Give me more. Keep your promise, God. And if you keep your promise, I'll just slide you a little bit on the side. You see, Jacob responds to God's completely out there promise of blessing and protection with a completely conditional promise of his own. Since when were we in a conditional relationship with God? Call that arguing with God or boxing with God, saying, well, God, if you do this for me, I promise to do this for you. If you'll just allow this to happen, then I promise I won't do this anymore. Is that really how the relationship between God and humanity works? Well, in response to this incredible blessing of God, all Jacob can show is saying, I'm going to repeat that line because I just messed it up. Here it is again. In response to I'm going to start a third time. Third time's the charm. In response to the incredible blessing of God, all Jacob can think of saying is, show me the money. Show me the money, and I'll believe you. Really? Where is the grace in this story and in this character of Jacob? Why in the world would God enter into a relationship with someone and promise things when there's no guarantee that he's even going to follow through in the first place? I mean, when we look at readings and look at the Bible, we look for little moral snippets that will guide us on the way. Well, if you do this, you're going to get this. If you straighten up things, we're going to get better. The words of Jesus, the last will be first and the first will be last. Do unto others as they would have to do unto you. Really quick and narrow snippets of direction and guidance, and then we will surely enter into that grace-filled relationship with God at the highest of levels. But there isn't anything like that in the whole of Jacob's story. What we're simply left with is the remarkable tale of the God who insists time and time again on sticking with people even like Jacob. All of the dark days of their lives, down all of the crooked paths that they follow, wherever they find themselves, God seems to stick with them and with us. Those who follow the righteous path and those who squander all of those possibilities and go their own way for their own well-being. This doesn't seem to make sense. But maybe that's the part that we're to hear this morning. Maybe we have to realize and come to the understanding that we are not in control of God's blessing. When we make judgments about people, regardless of who they are, whether they're the James Regans of our story this morning that I shared with you, or the people that we know who, seem to walk outside the lines of decency and respectability in life, that the blessing that God shares with them is no different than the blessing that is shared with those of us who spend a lifetime continually trying to find the right path to walk. That's hard for us. It's difficult for us to say, that's okay, and to come to grips with it, and to understand it. But the message of the gospel is that this is precisely what God does time and time and time again. God does not simply abandon those who have the biggest challenges in walking the way that God would have us walk. Ever since the creation of the world, ever since the creation stories, Adam and Eve, God did not simply abandon them when he said, you can no longer live in the garden. But God continued to walk and to bless them, even though they walked contrary to the gift that God had offered. This is the challenge of our faith tradition and our understanding and our relationship with the divine. Anytime that you think that things are cut and dry, you have to do it this way, this way, this way, and this way, does not necessarily mean that you are the only righteous people in the land. That continues to be a challenge for us. It is what the Bible means and the whole breadth of our faith tradition means by grace. God sticks with you. No matter the challenge or the struggle you find yourself in today. That's God's way. That's Christ's way. That's the way of the Holy Spirit. And though we might not truly understand it or be able to reasonably comprehend it, we've never truly had an opportunity to fully comprehend the greatness of God either. And so may God's grace be shared with you, shared with your neighbor, your family, your enemy, the scoundrel within your midst. Because that is God's way. And we have no other way to live but with that insurance. Thanks be to God, though we may not understand, but it requires our thanksgiving nonetheless. Amen. Let us pray. God, here we are, like Jacob, at the gate of heaven, believing that the door is still ajar, coming to offer praise and thanksgiving. And like Jacob, who poured oil upon the rock where he slept and dreamt of angels and an open heaven, we too dream of these opportunities to be in communion and to truly know and feel your presence. We are here before you, O God, in faith. And in that faith, reassure us all today that you open heaven to a rascal like Jacob and continue to open it to us. Allow us the opportunity to lean in and to hear not only what you whisper to us, but we also might find the strength to be completely open and transparent in our lives with you. And so we give you thanks for loving us in spite of who we are, in spite of what we've done or who we are. And we thank you for seeing in us the people that we could become, that we will become, with the coming of your kingdom. For you offer us an unrelenting love that will always pursue us, apprehend us, and if we let it, transform us. God, we are awed when we consider that you are indeed the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of Jesus Christ, God of the Holy Spirit. And may we always find a way to respond in faith by aspiring to be in communion with you. And yes, care for the other, that we may not see eye to eye or agree with how they live, but you are still there for all. We take this moment of quiet reflection to share with you, O God, the prayers that we have for others, the prayers that we have for those close to us, the prayers that we have for this hurting world. And in your way, in your time, and in your blessing, respond. We offer these in all our prayers in the name of Jesus Christ, who welcomed the scoundrels of his time within his midst and to his table, and who taught the words, like Mother and Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our hymn of going forth this morning is an anthem of grace, an anthem of love, of majesty, and of wonder. For it is number 333, Love Divine, All Loves Excelling, number 333. a thank you and a deep appreciation for Betty and Matthew, Katie, Sean, and Greg. Over the past 10 days, not only did we do last Sunday's service live, but also today's service live, but we've also recorded 5 summer services. And so in a 10-day period, putting together 7 services is quite an accomplishment. And so a heartfelt thank you to all of your time and your energy and your willingness to be a part of this time. And as we go forward this day, may the road of the rest of these summer months and days and weeks rise up before us. May the calm winds of God be upon our backs. May that warm summer sun shine brightly upon our faces. And yes, we do need some rain in our lives, but all the challenges that fall upon our shoulders, may they just drip off like water on a duck's back. And when we gather again, and throughout this time where we are apart, may God hold you within the palm of God's hand, and may you be loved and blessed and safe. Go with God this day. Amen.